again. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're going to go through Unit 32 again, which is Strategic Human Resource Management, and cover LO2 today, which basically means appraise the theoretical perspectives of strategic HRM and their associated practices in different types of organization. So we're going to focus on the theoretical perspectives of strategic HRM, basically meaning how HR is managed and how it is in alignment with the organization's strategic objectives. Just going to go through the indicative content, basically what all we are going to cover today. We're going to be obviously going through the strategic approaches of HRM. We're going to talk about the evolution from personal to HRM and the growth of strategic HRM. I have a video that I'll go through for that, because that'll just make it easier for you to understand what was the link between the evolution, like how it started, and how did we move on to strategic human resource management, or strategies basically that come in, and obviously the link between the business strategy and the HR strategy. Now we're going to go through the features, assumptions, and practices, and also talk about some of the theories that we spoke about yesterday. We spoke about the contingency theory and the resource-based approaches. I'm still going to go through it really quickly with you again, so you get a better idea, because that's going to be used later on through this presentation. We're going to talk about HR's role in achieving the sustainable competitive advantage and in building flexible, agile organizations, and then talk about the impact of the theory on HR practices. Basically, the need to create a coherent and integrated set of HR practices that support strategic decisions and the organization's goals, and the choices that you make in terms of putting different HR strategies and how you're approaching them. And lastly, the importance of performance and the behavioral outcomes. All right, just going through quickly the key terminologies. So firstly, what are the theoretical perspectives of strategic HRM? So strategic HRM is basically how you're going to manage or modify your HR strategies, that it can get in alignment with the organization's end goals or objectives. Now, every organization thinks about the future goals that they'll have when they start their business or when the business is continuing. Every year, they come up with specific set of goals to achieve for the next year. So, for example, we spoke about the cafe yesterday and how it was a business plan and how they sell coffee and hot chocolate, right? Now, if the cafe is selling 50 cups a day this year, their goal or one of their goals would be to achieve something in the next 3 years, for example, would be to sell 150 cups of coffee every day instead of 50. Now, how are they going to reach there, or how are they going to approach that? So they are going to look at specific HR strategies, and that HR strategy has to be aligned with the objective or the strategic objective of the organization. So it basically are, what are the organization's strategic objectives? They are statements that indicate what is critical and what is important in an organization strategy. So there can be so many different goals that the organization has, but they're going to focus on a few specific ones, the ones that are the most important or the most critical ones, right? So for example, again, talking about the cafe, if they are selling 50 cups and they want to reach their goals of 150 cup a day, what are they going to be focusing on? They need, as an organization, brand recognition, more employees. They need maybe a newer space to expand their cafe. So HR strategies are going to be formulated keeping all of those goals or all of those objectives in mind. So they're going to be looking at hiring more talent, hiring people with more experience, or bartenders with more years of experience so that they can work faster. Looking at a space for expansion, looking at promotional strategies, or looking at how associates can remain content within their specific job role, and looking at employee satisfaction. Now, coming on to some of the key theoretical perspectives in strategic human resource management. We spoke about a few of these theories yesterday, but I'm going to quickly go through all of this again, because it's going to help you understand in the later half of this presentation, basically. So talking about resource-based view, what is resource-based view now? It was the managerial framework basically used to determine how strategic resources in a firm can be used or can be basically exploited well to achieve advantage. So an organization already has specific set of resources. You have employees working, you have normal industrial resources that you're using, you have goods that you're making use of. So how can you make better use of the same resources that you have, and how can you exploit them to achieve a major competitive advantage? That is what resource based view focuses on. For example, let's say someone was an HR analyst previously where they worked in an organization. And now in this specific organization, they are focusing on being an HR administrator or just focusing on working the admin part of HR. So when an organization decides that, all right, we need to start using data to make decisions, because nowadays people have started focusing on data majorly to make decisions for the future, right? So how can you exploit that specific person who was already, okay, I'm using maybe the word exploit sounds wrong, but how are you going to tap into that person for them to help you out? Like, all right, you have these skills, what more do you need for you to move your role or use data to make decisions as well? Do you need a better software? Do you need, I don't know if someone's heard of Power BI is a Microsoft software basically. Do you need Power BI to look at data and sort your data out quicker than Excel? So that's how an organization or HR provides these resources for them to do better in their job role, or for them to eventually move over to the goals of the organizations, which was in this example looking at data. Now we're going to talk about the human capital theory. So the human capital theory essentially means that we spoke about this yesterday as well. So humans or employees can be seen as assets or costs. So if they are assets, they're basically going to talk about what skills they have, the employee knowledge, the education that they have, or the previous experiences that they have. And is that human or that employee helping or giving economic value for his work or her work, and the experience and the skills that they're bringing along? So again, moving back to the cafe example, for, let's say, um, if the cafe is looking at growing or doing better, they might probably hire a barista who has 5 years of experience and is really good at what he or she does. Wherein if you hire people without a lot of experience, it's going to take longer for them to prepare the same cup of coffee versus an experienced person. So that's where human capital theory explains that one employee gives out that much output, wherein another employee might give out less based on various factors that they personally have. Talking about contingency theory, we spoke about this yesterday as well, and I asked if anyone knows this. So it basically is like, how do you react or manage in a specific situation of crisis? What situation, like a specific situation, how do you handle it, or what leaders you have in place for them to manage that specific situation really well? That basically means contingency theory. Talking about institutional theory, so institutional theory basically means to understand the organization and how to manage the organization's practices. So every organization has a specific set of the way it works. You have a specific work environment or how the organization functions. And there's a specific set of guidelines. There can be a dress code policy, there can be how you need to behave in a specific situation. You have organizations that have a formal dress code or formal behavior, and whereas organizations that have a little informal work environment wherein they're more flexible, adapt more. You might not have to properly dress up formally in that organization. So institutional theory talks about a specific institution's framework and how it works, and also about how there are guidelines for social behavior and the work environment. Coming to stakeholder theory again talks about the relationship that a business or an organization has with its customers, its suppliers, its investors, and basically the community around it. So, stakeholder theory basically focuses on not just making business decisions for the shareholders in the company. So, shareholders are basically people that have invested in the company, but also keeping in mind the stakeholders, like the daily customers that buy from you, because of which you might get profit, even them in mind, because eventually the end goal is your customer or your supplier or in lot people that are around that are helping you grow the company. um, going to talk about strategic fit and flexibility. Strategic fit and flexibility, it basically means how a business responds to the environmental changes, and is the business flexible enough for them to make specific decisions. Now, it can be looking at specific changes or environmental changes and responding in a timely manner. Or, you're looking at the competition in the market and you're seeing what your competition is doing. And that is why you're making specific changes to your business to basically be at par with everyone else in the business going on. Talking about behavioral perspective. So, behavioral perspective essentially means the way a person or eventually we how we behave or learn a specific situation, and that is basically explained through interactions that we have in within our environment. You can be sitting in your house on your bed and you might respond to a specific situation differently compared to how I would respond to a specific situation, or vice versa. So behavioral perspective tries to explain that a person's behavior or response level is affected by a specific situation that happens naturally, or it can also be influenced by the way they have already learned how to respond to a specific situation. So let's say um, someone who is older to us, or basically our parents, might approach a specific situation more calmly and think about it before reacting, wherein kids can react to that same situation in an aggressive manner. So let's say if you have been put in a situation where someone's arguing with you, probably someone who is learned enough might just walk away and be like, I don't want to argue, wherein someone might actually argue back and be like, no, this is wrong, let me make it right. So that's how a person reacts to a situation, and that's their behavior, individual behavior to that specific situation that happened. And it's also affected by external stimuli, basically outside factors. For example, there can be a very simple case. The person was hungry and they decided to argue back because I was hungry, I wasn't thinking straight. That's literally the simple external stimuli can make such changes to a person's behavior. Now we're just going to move on to the evolution from personal to HRM and the growth of the strategic HRM. So this table or this chart essentially explains the changes to human resource management that happened from the past to the present. Now you have time periods listed down and what all evolution took place and why did that specific evolution took place. For example, in the 19th century, you had clerical operation, and what influenced that was basically immigration to the US from all over the world. So there were so many people moving to the US, because of which they decided, all right, we need to sit and document everything. That's how the evolution started. So I have a quick video on this as well that shows the evolution and different changes or specific changes that took place. We're going to go through this table later. I'm just going to show you the video first. Do let me know if you cannot hear the audio over there.
To our channel. Today, we delve into the captivating world of the historical evolution of human resource management, or HRM. As organizations strive to effectively manage their workforce, HRM has undergone a remarkable transformation throughout history. From the emergence of personnel departments during the Industrial Revolution to the integration of technology in the late 20th century, HRM has evolved in response to societal, technological, and economic changes. Join us as we explore the key stages and pivotal events that have shaped HRM into the strategic and dynamic function it is today. Let's embark on this enlightening journey through time. Here are some key events in the evolution of HRM. 1. Emergence of personnel departments. 2. Scientific management principles. 3. The Great Depression and employee welfare. 4. Equal employment opportunity. 5. Technological advancements. 6. Modern workplace trends. Before we dive into the details, let's consider some questions. How did HRM evolve over time? What were the important events that led to its transformation? Now, let's explore each event and its impact on the evolution of HRM. 1. Emergence of personnel departments. During the Industrial Revolution in the late 18th century, organizations faced challenges in managing their growing workforce, leading to the establishment of personnel departments. These departments were responsible for labor relations, hiring, firing, and wage administration. 2. Scientific management principles. In the early 20th century, scientific management principles became influential in HRM. Concepts such as time-motion studies, job specialization, and performance-based pay were introduced to increase workplace efficiency and productivity. 3. The Great Depression and employee welfare. The economic downturn of the 1930s, known as the Great Depression, prompted personnel departments to address employee welfare, safety, and compliance with labor laws to protect workers during challenging times. 4. Equal employment opportunity. The civil rights movement of the mid-20th century brought about significant changes in HRM. Legislation such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 promoted equal employment opportunity and challenged discriminatory practices, emphasizing diversity and inclusion in the workplace. 5. Technological advancements. The late 20th century witnessed the integration of technology into HRM. Computers, software systems, and the internet transformed HR processes, making them more efficient and strategic. HRM adopted digital solutions for recruitment, training, performance management, and payroll. 6. Modern workplace trends. In the 21st century, HRM faces new challenges influenced by globalization, rapid technological advancements, and evolving employee expectations. HRM focuses on creating a positive work culture, fostering employee engagement, and enhancing well-being. It embraces flexible work arrangements, employee development programs, and holistic approaches to employee wellness. These events mark significant milestones in the evolution of HRM, shaping its practices and functions to adapt to the changing needs of organizations and employees over time. And that concludes our journey through the historical evolution of HRM. We've explored the significant events that have shaped HRM into the strategic function it is today. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more insightful videos.
I hope that gave you guys an idea on how HR has evolved through the past couple of years, and also the changes that have been brought because of external influences that have been taking place. So like we can see over here, it gives you a timeline of all of the influences that happen because of which specific set of changes were made to human resource management functions. You had, it is actually sounds really crazy, but you started with a file drawer maintenance in the early 1900s, because there was World War and there was economic depression and pressure of there. So there are so many changes that have happened, and specifically in the late 1900s and 2000s, there have been so many changes in terms of technology and IT coming up and booming, that everything is digitalized now. There are very few organizations that maintain a paper file or a paper drawer. Everything is going digital basically, and we are making changes. I remember I worked in an organization a couple of years ago, and we were told that from all of the drawers or the files that we have on paper, we have to scan each document and upload it digitally, because there was a process that they were doing and they were uploading everything online, and they were like, we're not going to have any paper files. And also I feel GDPR comes into perspective as well when we're targeting this, because it's easier for your data to be stolen if it's on paper, for or other people to access it if it's on paper, whereas if it's digitally secured in a safe and secured folder with a password protected file, it makes it harder for people to extract that. Not saying that it can't happen, definitely that has happened, but it just, it's easier to maintain things digitally nowadays compared to having a paper file for everyone on board. So basically, in the video as well, what we saw, there has been an evolution from all of the traditional personal management to human resource management. And now we're looking at the different strategies in human resource management, or strategic human resource management essentially. And this evolution basically, it shows the changes in not just the business environment, but how organizations are putting their strategies in place and how they're looking at growing in the next few years. For example, every organization we spoke about has different business strategies for the next, say, 3-4 years down the line. They have a specific goal that they want to reach, and we have seen changes in those goals as well. Organizations have started to have a broader or a more employee centric goal where it comes to, and a very realistic goal, because they have been looking at data to make decisions. They've been properly analyzing everything and then making decisions, and they're making achievable goals basically, so that it's not too much work pressure or workload to their associates, because they're keeping that in mind as well, because they do understand how employees play a very important and a crucial role in achieving the business success. Now, going to be talking about how things shifted from personal management to human resource management, and also the growth in the strategies that came up. That's going to be talked about later on. So, talking about the personal management era. So, essentially, the focus was just on administration and taking care of all of the employee records, their payroll, and just basic employee data was stored. But eventually they started approaching things differently, and it was also focusing on employee relations and how to manage employees day to day, and how to help them succeed in their job role, and help with some problem solving when it comes to employee issues as well. And they shifted to human resource management, wherein the role expanded. So after the transition, um, they focus more on what the employee wants, and also how the employee works in that specific work environment or the organization's behavioral environment. And they started thinking of different strategies that they can come up with, and different policies that can be put in place that can help associates grow in the business as well as get their job done really well. And they spoke about strategic involvement, wherein human resources started being seen as more of playing a strategic role in the business environment, and to also achieve its organization's objectives like we spoke about before. So now human resources wasn't just about handling employees details and employees tasks, but it was also about thinking of various strategies which would help associates do better in their job and also stick with the organization's objectives. And there was a very employee centric approach that started being put up, because they now started seeing employees as assets rather than just costs, like we spoke about. The human capital theory comes into perspective over here, because um, first employees were just seen as a cost, but now they're seen as assets, wherein we speak about the employees' knowledge, their skills, and also their education and previous experiences that they have, um, and what, or the amount of economic value that the workers bring with their experiences and skill sets. So now associates aren't just seen as, all right, you're being hired to complete this specific task. Instead, these are the skills that you have to do these tasks, but what else can you do, or how much more can you contribute in the organization? We're looking at tapping those um, those skills that even associates wouldn't understand, that all right, we actually can take this on, we can do some extra, we can do this as well, and that will help the associate grow. So now it's more of an employee centric approach that we're looking at. And then there we saw a growth of the strategic human resource management, wherein we saw human resources aligning with the organization's strategies and making different strategic human resource decisions or HR practices so that they can gain a competitive advantage. Yesterday, we took the example of the cafe that I spoke about, and how just putting a compensation plan in place beforehand, before we reach that stage of associates complaining that there's a lot of workload and they're not being paid enough, there was already an compensation plan that was in place. So associates are motivated from the start and are also prepared that, all right, it's going to be a busy season, we're going to do this, we're being paid fairly, and it's going to work out. So that is an HR practice that was put in place beforehand, and also was in alignment with the organization's strategy to eventually grow as a business. Talking about proactive management. So, the strategic human resource management usually takes a proactive approach, wherein proactive approach eventually basically means that they're focusing on long-term workforce planning, talent management, and aligning HR policies with the organization's goals. So very similar to what we spoke about up, but it essentially means that you are making proactive decisions. So you're making decisions in advance, keeping the future in mind, and also doing it quicker, because if you don't, you're going to be irrelevant in nowadays business environment. Businesses are competing against one another so much that if you don't make a specific change to your business proactively or in a timely fashion, basically, you are going to be irrelevant, or people are not going to remember you that quick. Nowadays, you can see, like, with even trends in the market, there are so many trends that come up and get absolutely isolated just within the next 1 or 2 months. So that's how businesses can get isolated as well, and that's why they have to proactively make changes and focus on making um, different strategic changes to their business model. Talking about the theoretical foundations, so we spoke about the resource based view, and we also spoke about the strategic fit. So just coming back to what resource based view was, um, it just plays a role in development of human resource management, obviously, and also just focusing that a firm can have different strategic resources, and what all can they use to get a competitive advantage over its competitors, and what all they can use or achieve or exploit that they already have, and different strategies that they can put in place to get the most out of what they already have. And then strategic fit. So strategic fit basically means putting the correct strategy that fits your specific job environment or your specific job genre in the market. So you can have different changes that are being taking place in an actively manner, and also look at the competition in the market and then come up with strategies that fit your business model perfectly. Then talking about the current trends in strategic human resource management. So we spoke about how data-driven decision making is started all across the world nowadays. So you're using HR analytics to make informed decisions. Now, HR analytics can vary from the productivity. So you can have a proper data set on productivity of an associate, or how well they're doing when they're given a specific task to complete. So there can be some tasks that a specific person might really enjoy doing, wherein there are some tasks that someone might not enjoy that well, and so the productivity would be low. So it looks at how HR analytics can help putting the right tasks in the right person's plate. So if I enjoy working on Excel, I should be given more Excel driven work or Excel driven data that I need to analyze, wherein someone might work really well with a software called, I spoke about above, Power BI, and they can do wonders with Power BI, but I wouldn't know how to use that well, and that's why I don't enjoy doing that. So how data can help to make these decisions and give the associates the right work that they have to do. Then you have global talent management, which basically means that you are not just managing talent, just a specific set of, a specific set of cultural people. You're not just managing them, but instead you have a diverse workforce. You have people coming in from different backgrounds, and you have people coming in from so many different parts of the world, and your strategies should be in alignment, keeping all of their diverse cultures in mind. So you can see how organizations nowadays have celebrations for Diwali, for Eid, for Christmas, keeping every associate in mind. And it also helps associates learn a lot about each other as well. So because you're managing a diverse workforce, your approaches need to be diverse as well. Then talking about employee engagement and well-being. So nowadays, businesses are focusing on employee satisfaction and their well-being before getting the best out of them, or before getting them to work and burn out. They come up with different this thing strategies for employee well-being, which also eventually helps production and helps in retention. I spoke about, yeah, this app that a previous business came up with, that I was working with. So they essentially had a set of therapists, and through the app we could book a therapy or book an appointment, book a session. No one would know, we're just doing it through the app. It was information that, so if someone felt like, all right, I want therapy but I don't know how to ask for it, it was so simple: just go on the app, click a button, speak to someone for half an hour. So that is one of the well-being focuses that come into place, wherein you care about employees, and since you make them feel like you care about them, employees have a sense of trust on the business. And also it helps in retention because they have a sense of loyalty to that specific business, because they keep in mind that, all right, a business is helping me so much, not just caring about my work or what resources I need to do my job correctly, but also worrying about how that job role affects me and affects my mental health, and having resources or things in place for support that I can take support from. Then talking about sustainability and CSR. We spoke about CSR yesterday, wherein if you have, you have a specific goal in mind, you're like, all right, I care about the environment and I want to do a specific drive, then CSR comes into place and they put specific strategies in mind. So they help the associates different, an associate can have different passions to help that put into place. You have CSR focusing on, like there was a big thing for Black Lives Matter that was going around. So I read that there was a specific business that was donating to Black businesses. So you had a specific grant that was granted yearly and only focused on Black businesses, wherein they shortlisted 10 businesses and gave them £1,000 in grant so that they can do better and just support them. So as a business, that is a very good approach because there are so many people from the Black community working with that business as well. So they feel a sense of safety that, all right, this organization cares about people like us. So we need to be loyal and do much better and look at the business growing, so that, there can be a bigger grant next year, something like that. Now we're going to talk about strategic human resource management and conventional human resource management. So it can be talking about really a specific task like responsibility for human resource management. Traditionally, we had staff specialists who only focus on managing the personal files, wherein now we have line managers in place. Now the business looks like there are associates, there are line managers, then there are managers above that, and that is how they report to human resources. So you're not HR is not specifically looking at each employee, but instead they have managers in place that report back to HR, explaining them what's happening. Now traditionally was focus on employee relations, and even now the focus is on employee relations, but it's also making different partnerships with external and internal customers. And over here you come up you have the we spoke about how there are different theories that also take place. So we spoke about stakeholder theory that looks at partnerships with your customers as well, your the people that eventually use your business model, you need to think about them as well and have a relationship with them as well. That is what stakeholder theory was explaining. And then before, the role of HR was very transactional. It eventually transactional essentially means that, all right, this is your file, you're working with us, this is what you need to do, this is how much workload you're going to have. But now it's more of your leader motivating you, and someone being there to push you to do better every time. Then there were different initiatives that came up with. You had a very slow approach to HR, but now it's a very proactive approach wherein you need to come up with different strategies and make changes proactively to be relevant in the market. Now, they had a time horizon which basically was short term, but now it's looking at even a long term time, basically, eventually meaning that you're looking at the next 3-4 years in place when you're putting a specific strategy in place, and not just at the next 6 months. Now, there have been different changes to policies and different changes to the job design as well. So first, it was a very tight division of labor. People had to stick to what they were doing and they weren't given a lot of flexibility. But nowadays, there is a lot of flexibility. You have trainings, you have people going from one department to another department and using all of the resources that they have. So some people might be good at IT, but they have the skills to help in marketing as well. So if they want to explore it, now it's a more open market to explore all of this, and organizations are way more open for an associate to go and work in the marketing department for a month, say, compared to what they were before. And before, the key investments were focusing on capital and your products, focusing on getting the best equipment so that you can make the best product in the market. But now it's for the focus is shifted to more of people and knowledge, and how associates basically can be given more, um, can be given better skills or upskill them for them to come up with better ideas eventually for their products in the market. And then accountability has also shifted. So it was first the cost center, but now it's also the investors that can be held accountable as well, because even they are in charge of eventually the strategic decisions that the organization comes up with. So obviously, we spoke about the links between the business strategy and human resource strategy, and how it's important for the strategies that are being put place, or the strategic human resource decisions that are being taken should also be in alignment with the organization's objectives, because eventually you're looking at how HR is managed, and it has to be in alignment with the organization's strategic objectives. And we're looking at how we can put systems in place for managing and motivating associates, and also how much advantage we can come up with looking through a challenging environment. We spoke about the organization's strategic objectives and what they essentially look at. So it would basically mean that there are different statements that indicate what is critical and what is important in an organization's strategy, and how HR needs to focus on that and then make its own strategies in place. That can involve developing and implementing systems for managing and motivating employees. So, how, for example, in the cafe, we looked at having a proper compensation plan beforehand so that our employees were motivated when a huge ton of workload would have come up in the next few months. So, they already were compensated well, and they knew that, all right, if the workload increases, we are being paid enough. So, that's how we came up with the strategy, keeping the business's objectives in mind as well. So now we're going to talk about the integration of these two strategies, and how it is essential for different reasons. So I spoke about strategic alignment again, meaning the same thing, that how the HR strategy should be aligned with the business's strategy. Then we spoke about talent management as well, how a specific business strategy requires specific talent. In our cafe business model, we spoke about how we need to hire baristas with more experience so that they can do better, or they can reduce the timing while making a per cup of coffee, for say. Then we're looking at how we can enhance competitive advantage. We spoke about the resource-based view already. So again, resource-based view essentially means that what all resources we can already use and exploit to achieve competitive advantage in the future. And we can also look at um, developing skilled and more committed workforce because of that, because we are looking at our resources and looking at how we can help them better, and how the resources already that we have can give us more profits per se in the end. Then building organizational capabilities. So the HR strategies help in building an organization's capability as well. For example, HR helps to have a leadership plan in place, and to have a specific culture or a business culture. So it can eventually mean that you can have a proper dress code and a strict dress code policy for having a formal workplace culture, or you can have a little informal workplace culture and be open with associates being comfortable and having a collaborative work environment. So that's how the strategies that HR comes up with helps to also build the organization's capabilities in the end. Now, how does strategic human resource management respond to external changes? We've spoken about this yesterday as well, and how globalization played a role. But going through it again, it would be that how you adapt to different market changes. So, what kind of proactive approaches HR makes in its strategies to align with the business's objectives? So, we spoke about this theory called strategic fit. So, strategic fit would eventually mean that how the business responds to the environmental changes in a timely manner and also looks at competition in the market. That's how you would say you adapt to the changing market. And that's where HR plays a key role, so that the different strategies they bring up, that will help its employees or its workforce to eventually adapt to that and be flexible enough to make those changes. We spoke about globalization yesterday, wherein we spoke about how businesses are expanding globally and how the HR strategies are important to be in par with those changes that are taking place. There have been so many changes when it comes to the business environment, when it comes to legal rules that have been put up into place. And we spoke about the paternity policy. That's a new thing that's starting to come up, and businesses are starting to take on that. I've read so many businesses are starting to launch with new paternity policies, giving 2 weeks to a month off for men that are working in the business when they have a new child. So that's how, because of global trends or because of trends that are external to the business needs to change and also make specific changes. Yesterday, we also spoke about how last year was a down, everything was down, wherein the year coming up next year is predicted to be a boom. So there are going to be changes to the hiring and retention strategies. There are going to be changes to people people were getting redundant, basically being removed from their job role previous year, but now they're looking at hiring more people in. So that's where globalization makes a very big role. Then supporting business growth, you can talk about scalability. So scalability essentially means the scale at which how a business grows and how the workforce is managed accordingly as well. So obviously, we'll, like we spoke about the cafe again. I'm sorry I keep bringing the cafe up. It's just a very simple business model to just put that idea of what scalability is into actual in the business world, how it would mean. So like we spoke, like the cafe was looking at selling 150 cups of coffee every day compared to 50 cups that it already was. So that's how they're trying to grow as a business. So if the business is growing, we would have to look at hiring more employees, hiring better people who have more skills and experiences, looking at probably a newer space or an extension to the cafe so that they can accommodate more people that come in and want to just have a good time and sit for a while. So that's where HR has to look at recruitment and different trainings of associates to for them to just have all of the skills to do better in their job. Then it also looks at succession planning. And succession planning eventually means that how qualified associates are being put in the specific job roles, and how the organization is evolving and growing, because of which we need skilled employees to be put up in specific places. Then enhancing employee engagement and culture. So organization culture is really crucial and important. We spoke about how different organizations have different cultures, and which eventually supports the business strategy. Like I spoke, an organization can have a culture wherein it's very work focused and very formal, wherein an organization can have an informal business culture, and the HR strategies would vary accordingly. Then you have employee engagement. um, HR plays a crucial part in keeping employees engaged so that they are productive and innovative enough in their job. Um, Employee engagement can be directly engaging with the employees in terms of, if they're doing a good job, giving them special, like specific extra points for doing better, and or monetary points that they can be incentivized with. Or you're also looking at employee engagement with celebrating a specific festival. For example, there's Christmas coming up. How a business responds to that matters a lot. Like, I used to work for a previous business wherein during Christmas dinners, we used to get, we had a canteen down in the business. And what they used to essentially do is give each associate one coupon for a meal. So we used to have a proper Christmas dinner roast down in the cafe during our breaks. And we could take the coupon and go in and have a free dinner, basically. And that's important for employee engagement, because we had time slots that we had to go in, and everyone was sitting together and eating their proper dinner. So that helps in associates getting to know different associates from other departments as well, and helps in employee engagement in the end, basically. So what HR strategies are being put in place to do that, that's important as well. So eventually, we spoke about how the relationship between a business strategy and HR strategy is very, very important, and how a well aligned HR strategy will support the business strategy and also actively help the organization to grow. And it's really important for the organization's competitive advantage and long term success, because what all strategies you're implementing now is for the next 3 years down the line. So it is going to determine how the organization is going to look like in the future, and where it's going to be, and at what level it's growing as well. So now we're going to quickly talk about few of the practical implications and how they make changes. We have a different set of examples focusing on real life or real world organization context, and we're going to be looking through that, and also look at how those impacts have caused benefits or some difficulties that have come up, or the challenges while you're implementing these specific strategies. So for the first example, we have a tech setup or an IT company. So you have, an innovative culture and an agile environment wherein you're coming up with new ideas and flexibility, and you have continuous learning that's taking place in the organization. And you also have a very open communication and collaboration with associates in the organization. And then focusing on talent acquisition and retention, because the tech company is so competitive, having the best talent that can deal with tech is really important for a business. So this basically would mean that there are different strategic HR human resource strategies that we're putting in place, where it comes to having competitive salaries, you have equal opportunities, and you have an engaging work environment, so that all of the talent that's in the business is the top talent. And that's going to make a very big difference, especially in this emerging tech world. And as a tech company, you're continuously upskilling and reskilling your associates as well. So you need to come up with different HR strategies for training and development of your associates. If you're looking at, a fintech company, basically a tech company only, but looking at the companies taking care of financial payments. So how do you have to train your associates well to make them sure that, all right, if there is a breach that's taking place, how you need to respond. um, I read a company that used to send phishing emails. Phishing emails basically mean that it's a suspicious email. It would basically say that, you're getting a parcel delivered. Click this link to claim and make sure that you get it delivered at the correct address. Now, if you click that link from your work laptop has so much crucial data that they might actually be able to extract information from you. So the HR was basically sending these fake emails around in the company, and associates were being trained that if an email like this comes up, you need to mark HR and IT and send it back saying that this looks like a suspicious email. And they were getting extra points if they marked the correct emails that were suspicious. And if associates were actually clicking the link, it used to go on a page that read, "You have been fished," or "You have been fooled," basically, because this is a scam and you actually click the link, so your data would have been taken. So that's how an innovative training was put into place, wherein associates were trained on the job. And when you're in that pressure and doing work and sorting out your emails, you might actually think, oh, let me click the link and see what happens. But that will eventually train you, wherein when it comes next time, it's going to stay in your head that, okay, no, this looks suspicious. Let me report this. Now we're going to take an example of a large multinational corporation. So you have a global talent that you have to manage. You have people coming in from different work cultures, and you need to take care of different legal things in place and also different work environments. So the legal frameworks for every country is different. There might be specific rules that are set in the UK, and there are specific rules that are set in India. Like in the UK, it's legally required for associates to be paid a sick leave. So you have a statutory sick leave that is basically a sick leave that is given by the government. You have a minimum wage that's there, that you have to be paid £100 per day, irrespective of your job role, irrespective of anything. But if you're on sick leave, you have to be paid that much. Wherein in India, you might not have a specific set or amount of money that you have to pay an associate for a sick leave. So that's wherein all of the legal places come into place when you're looking at global talent and how you're managing that, and how you globally create policies that can work with everyone around. And it's also very flexible. Then you're looking at diversity and inclusion, because again, we spoke about how you have people coming in from diverse environment and how you need to be inclusive and keep everyone in mind while you're making a different strategies. You're looking at succession planning, which essentially means that who is going to be at the leadership position eventually, and how human resources or practices would help to make those decisions, and also look at potential leaders that are going to be there in their career. Then we're looking at a healthcare sector. So for a healthcare sector, they're looking at staff well-being and burnout. So in healthcare, there has been so much going on that you have a demand of healthcare staff, but because of the shortage of that, we are looking at staff being burned out and not being able to do the best at their job and not having a work-life balance. So keeping that in mind for a healthcare sector is really important. um, Giving them the proper training and compliance is important as well, because they are dealing with really sensitive information, and they're also, the work that they're doing is very is important for them to legally keep everything in mind and legally make sure that your all of the compliance is legally proper and is in requirement and is essential basically. Then you're looking at patient-centered workforce strategies. So how healthcare must align its strategies for basically the goal, that the goal is providing the best healthcare facility and the best patient care. So it not just requires medical training or them being, all right, you've operated, you're good at your job, but them to also be uh, have some empathy and communicate well. You're dealing with sensitive patients over here. You are dealing with people's life at stake. You need to have that much empathy and communication with the patient as well. So they need to be trained that way as well, because obviously it's a healthcare sector. Now we're going to look at the practical implications of it. So because of the change management, implementing the strategies or HR strategies can have a significant change in the organization culture and practice. And these changes might also not always, everyone is not happy with changes that are happening. People are usually comfortable with where they are, and if they're going to be put in a place that is different from the environment they're used to having, people feel uncomfortable. So we need to see how these changes are managed well within the organization, and also need to check how these changes or these strategies are going to align with the business strategy like we spoke about. So it's important that HR leaders have, a good understanding of the business and its strategic goals eventually. And then you need to continuously monitor and adapt it. So it's not just, okay, this is a strategy we came up with, we've put it out, people need to follow it. No, you need to continuously make changes to it and adapt. You need to monitor if it's going the way you thought it would or not. Like, for example, some companies or organizations came up with a policy wherein you have to come in the office and work, and you can only work from home one day a week. um, Associates might not be happy with that policy and might actually, they might struggle with retention, because people decide that, all right, this is not working out for me, I can do the same job from my house, why am I supposed to travel, or why I'm being forced to travel? So they would eventually look at different businesses that offer a more flexible environment. So businesses need to keep checking if the strategy they have put in place is eventually helping the business or doing harm. And then resource allocation. So obviously, putting different strategies in place also requires proper investments and resources. And the organizations must know well how to balance these expectations. So an organization might be like, all right, I'm putting in 10 million pounds. I want a return of 30 million pounds. That might not always be realistic. So we need to put in realistic expectations and also look and predict our outcomes beforehand. So basically, concluding that strategic human resource approaches are so different in different environments, and you need to take care of so much together. You have talent management, organization culture, and the practices vary and depend. It depends on, the company size, how the company is responding, or what is the company working on, the goals of the company eventually. So and also different practical implications, like how you need to change management, how you need to put different leaders at different places, how you need to adapt to new challenges continuously and be proactive in your approaches. There's a lot that is thought of before putting a strategy in place. um, Quickly going through this now, we spoke about how, strategic changes are made to the tech company, for example. So the benefits would be that because they have an agile and innovative culture, that's going to eventually help them, and it's essential for the tech company. And if you're focusing on talent management and upskilling their associates, it's going to be helpful again, because tech continuously is evolving and changes, and there are many changes to the technological advancements that are taking place. Now, the challenges that a tech startup or an IT company would come up with is that they would see that they usually have HR systems that might be obsolete, and that would eventually have potential issues in the organization, and also look at employee burnout, because tech is rapidly changing every day. And you might also look at losing the spirit of the associates, wherein since it's a startup company, they have, they have this entire spirit that, all right, we have to do this, we're going to do this. And you might eventually lose that because of the burnout that the associates are going to be facing. Then the challenges that a large multinational corporation would eventually have, that the HR policies can get really complex because in a multinational corporation, you're looking at global talent and looking at diverse workforce. So keeping everyone in mind can get really difficult as well. So having one policy for every little country might be so challenging because it has to work for all. So that might make things more difficult. And maybe the policies need to be taken in a different approach so that they're not very complicated. And there might also be some resistance to different policies, wherein, someone who is okay to work 4 days in the office and someone who's not okay to work 4 days in the office. They might actually have like an argument being like, this is not working out for me. How can HR put such a policy in place without keeping everything in mind? The person who is not okay to work 4 days in the office might actually be a mom to a 7-year-old, and she's trying to explain that I can do the same job from home, and I can also go to school and pick up my kid and come back, and I can see my kid around playing behind me while I'm working. So that's why I can't come to work or can't come to the office. So there might be a resistance to the different policies that are being put up in place as well. Then the healthcare sector. So obviously there are benefits that we spoke about, but when it comes to challenges, um, healthcare sector requires a lot of investment, and that can be really challenging because if you're putting a new strategy in place, you also need to put a lot of investment in to give the associates all of the resources they need. And there can be arguments from medical practitioners explaining that, this specific policy is too time consuming, or if there's a policy wherein HR wants the doctors to jot down every information of the patient detail and make a file for the patient digitally, and the doctors might argue that that is too much of admin work for me because that takes a lot of my time, but my time should focus on how to treat patients better and how to be empathetic towards them and talk to them better. So there can be different critiques that then can come up when it comes to putting strategies in place. You have strategic misalignment, which essentially means that due to not understanding a specific business strategy, HR professionals might actually make different, the objectives of the HR professional in the end might be different to what the business strategy was looking at getting, and that can be a miscommunication between departments. Then you have change resistance that we spoke about, that the new strategies that are being put in place might actually not be taken well by all of the employees, because when a person has been put in a place to make a specific change, they're usually not comfortable with that. Then you speak about resource constraints. Basically, there can be different constraints that can come up, and the same resource might have to be used in a different place, and because of that constraint, you have less resources or limited resources, and having that same resource to be used in 10 different places might not actually work. Then measurement and evaluation. So you can measure the direct impact of how the strategies impact the employee's performance or the organization's performance eventually. Like we spoke about, you're keeping strategies in mind, looking at 3 years down the line. And then then the last part is overemphasis on strategic fit. So it's HR strategies are focusing so much on it to be a perfect fit for the business environment that you're not looking at the organization and how it needs to be agile meaning that how it needs to manage different changes that come up with, and you need to anticipate that future changes from the start. So concluding, I would say that while the strategic human resource management practices offer different advantages, they need to be aligned with the business and the organization's goal for them to work out really well and for them to basically work out without any challenges. And we spoke about the different challenges that businesses can go through while launching new strategic human resource practices. And it's really important for a business to recognize and address these challenges so that they can get the best benefit out. So it's important for businesses to overcome these challenges so that eventually they can do better in the organization, and they know that they have been fully able to use that specific strategic approach that they thought about 100% and completely well. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
All right, then. So this was the end of LO2, or the outcome. If you have any questions, you can obviously send me an email, ask me questions now. I look forward to meeting you next week again. We're going to go through the other learning objectives in those sessions.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Have a nice day. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.